Welcome back to the Family Fortune. Malcolm did not feel like participating with me today, so I wrangled in none other than Reverend Michael Woods to talk to me. Say hello.
Hey, Tab fam. Good to, I will say see y'all, but see you, hear you. Good to be here.
Yeah. And while we're joking in the beginning, you know, we back to talk about another deep topic. Today, let's talk about predatory lending.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, predatory lending, it sounds ominous, but, you know, most of us know it by some of the different entities that make up predatory lending. So before we actually get into deep dive and talking about the different types and how we can save ourselves, let's see what Investopedia had to say as a definition. So according to Investopedia, predatory lending typically means imposing unfair, deceptive, or abusive loan terms on borrowers. This could be in the form of higher than normal fees, excessive fees, interest rates, taking away any equity that they may put down, or placing those who might have qualified for a regular or typical loan from a regular lender, such as a bank or a credit union, in a higher, or rather they place them lower, which means that they can then raise their interest rate.
Absolutely.
So that's a lot. But we want to that's a lot to kind of understand. So we want to make sure we break it down a little bit for you, what exactly predatory lending is in language that we can understand, i.e. me, and then the different types of loans that's out there, how you cannot become a victim of it, and also talk about some of the current laws. So tell me what you know about predatory lending. So, wise one.
Yeah. So actually, it's unfortunate that I do know so much about it because it's impacted so many kids, so many families. And I say kids meaning that the impact on financial situations in people's lives where, unfortunately, people get themselves in financial difficulties and challenges.
Mm-hmm.
Their credit scores are impacted. They do not have the ability to go to traditional financial settings. And so these, quote, lenders, if you will, become predatory in nature by focusing on a market.
Mm-hmm. And we know what that market is.
That's right. That's low income based, and where the socioeconomic standard is below what we may consider a poverty line in America, and use that to their advantage.
Mm-hmm.
And
now, today we typically know that predatory lenders are like these check cashing places mm-hmm. and what have you. But it didn't start there. If my research is correct, predatory lending actually started with the housing market way back in the day, even before you were born.
Yeah, actually, predatory lending, with what we know, all of the cash places, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's relatively new in our market over the last 25 to 30 years. But you're right. It actually started way back with predatory lending when it was actually race-based,
mm-hmm.
right, where African Americans in our country, or people of color, did not have access to traditional loans, and so they used the fact that your skin color, where you lived, as relates to housing, because housing was then, still is, the American dream. It's how you build asset and long-term wealth for your family, and so they just were not purpose to give you access to it. When I say housing, but we're talking about purchasing is what we're talking about, and lending practices.
Now, I'm not a homeowner, so I'm going to rely on your expertise.
Okay.
Kind of tell me what subprime mortgages are, because that's a predatory lending tactic.
Yeah.
So what exactly is that?
Yeah. So subprime lending is really about lending to people who are not traditional. They don't qualify in traditional settings of banking, right? So your major banking institutions,
mm-hmm.
If I'm not there's either qualified buyer or there's going to be a non-qualified buyer, which means that you don't meet their qualifications, meaning credit history, your income base, right? Those are going to be two of the main factors. Your credit history is going to be. So if I have a very low credit score and my income is not at a certain annual level, then I become a non-qualified buyer. So what that means then is that now I have to go to non-traditional financing. So what non-traditional financiers do, these lenders, they look at the prime. Like, for instance, the prime now is currently like 8.5%, but our interest rate is around 7-something%. Right? So what they do is they bump up the interest rate.
And that's why they say subprime, because they're
Subprime.
below what a typical or those who actually qualify would be. And
Yeah, don't let the sub doesn't apply to
does?
the interest rate. It applies to the person applying.
Ooh,
Right, I know. Right, it really does, because to say sub means to below, and their interest rate is not below. Right, so the subprime is when you lend to people who are not traditional qualified buyers or purchasers. Right, and so they increase your interest rate, and the reason that they call that predatory lending is because we all know that when you purchase a home, your first 10 years or so on a 30-year mortgage, 5 to 10 years, is depending upon the financial structure, it's going to be interest only. You're paying a lot of interest up front. Well, imagine that on a $500 or $1,000 loan or a $2,000 loan at one of these predatory lending institutions, and you have a high interest rate, low income, you're only paying interest on that for like a lot of years.
If you end up missing a payment or two, then that means you're more likely to have everything taken away from you, be it your house or everything. You know, that's why they have a lot of the foreclosures back
Absolutely.
then.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how foreclosures were at an all-time high then, because even if you were 30 days out, they could come and repossess your house. Yeah, absolutely. And that's what that means, because now I'm bound, if you will, and I'm handcuffed, if you will, to that lending institution, and they're making all this money off of me, and I have no way of finding. Well, you know, the fact is that I don't have. My dad used to say, if you to stop from digging a hole, you first got to throw the shovel out. Well, even if I throw the shovel out, I'm so deep now, I have no way of getting out of this hole.
Yeah. So and we're going to talk a little bit more about this later, but that's why you also have to educate yourself. So and podcasts and, you know, research like this, you know, the library with the books and encyclopedias, do your research. But like I said, we're going to talk a little bit more about how you can, you know, the tactics to clear yourself. So what I'm most familiar with, because it's my testimony, is the payday loans.
Yeah.
That's how I got sucked. Sucked down in that rabbit hole, and it's a rabbit hole.
It is. Yeah.
And it's not a good rabbit hole where you thinking you're just, okay, I just need a little bit to get over until the next payday, because, you know, even though I was in the military, I wasn't getting paid what typical soldiers who was the rank I was getting, because I only had like less than a year in. So while I was a specialist, which is like a senior enlisted or junior enlisted, sorry. I was only getting paid the equivalent of a private's pay. So typically, especially, you've been in like 2 or 3 years, and I came in getting still the pay of a private, because back then they still do. They base upon your rank and then your number of years in service. So depending on how many years in service, that's when your pay goes up. So, and daycare was so. Long story short, I ended up frequenting a lot, because once you start, it's hard to stop, because you can't stop.
Yeah.
Because you're thinking, okay, I'm only going to buy $100, but like the video we were watching earlier, you got $100, but it's at 50% interest rate, and you got to pay it every 2 weeks. The military only paid every 2 weeks. I was not getting out that hole.
Yeah,
it was hard to get out that hole.
Yeah.
And I finally just had to hit the bottom.
Yeah.
And then just do what I didn't want to do, which sent me to the place in the first place, which was let go of my pride and ask for help.
Yeah.
Ask for help. You know, because while my family would have been more than willing to assist me, I didn't want to ask.
And I think that's, again, it's called predatory lending, right? And I think that's one of the things that they take advantage of is pride. I think especially in the African American community, we're very prideful people anyway, right? And so our journey through America has been one where we finally got to a place where we could afford to do what we want to do, live where we want to live, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there is some truth to trying to live like the Joneses, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
There's some truth to that. Or like in your instance, you say, hey, I just need just like $100, right? Like, and do I need this really right now? It's easy to go to it's easier to go to, it's better to go to a family member. Let me say it that way.
Mm-hmm.
But like you say, it could be prideful, right? I'm in
Right.
the military. Hey, I'm out on my own. Do I
Yeah, and
really
they
need
think
help?
you're
They think
making
that
it.
you're making it. Yeah.
You know, you kind of
Yeah.
presented that
Yeah.
picture that you're
Yeah.
making it.
But like you said, 35, 45, 50% interest. Just imagine $100, and now I owe you $135 or $145 or $150, right? So I really put that's the hole that you're talking about that seems to have no bottom.
Because now I got to pay the $135, and I'm like, well, I was stuck before when I only needed $100, so now I got to get some more in order to pay back not only the original $100 that I needed, but the $100, all.
And imagine that the difference in the so they say to give you a 2-week time frame or 7-day period. Let's say is it going to be 14 days initial, or 7 days initial, 14 days initially. Let's just talk about that for a second to show you how it's compound interest is good if you're investing. It's not good if you owe, right? So if let's just say it's at 50%, that's on the high end. Let's just say so I borrow $100, and I know I have to pay $150 back. But if I don't pay it back in 2 weeks, then that difference may drop to an additional 10% or 5%. So now I'm at 60. At some point within probably 30 days, you're gonna owe twice or 3 times the amount, right? So now I owe $200. Now I owe $250 or $225. Now I owe $250.
And let's not forget the fees, because not
All
only
the
do you have
fees.
the
Oh, my
interest, you
goodness.
have your
Oh
overdraft
my goodness!
fee, you have your processing fee.
Absolutely.
And that's how they actually get you
That's
is
it.
with those fees,
That's
because
it.
thank goodness some of the laws have changed, but back then, people didn't want to be known out as a predatory lender, so your interest may not be excessive, but the fees were.
Absolutely. And I think that's the way before, like in Arkansas, where I'm from, the governor finally, the legislators finally shut predatory lending down in Arkansas. Now, we, as you and I know, we just saw a little bit ago, there are a lot of states that still have those in place.
I think it's only 17 now
Yeah.
that actually have usury laws, and usury laws is aimed directly at those predatory
Absolutely.
lenders where you can
They
only
max out the
I think it's 36%, at least here in Georgia.
Yeah, in Arkansas they maxed out at 10%.
Yeah, in Georgia, I think it's 36%
yeah.
that they can max. You can't go beyond 36%. But based upon, and a lot of places actually did away with the check cashing and the payday loan places. But we all know how they came around that law. What do we call them now? The car title loan places.
Yep, the car title loan. And the other thing too is that, like you say, they worked around. Another way they worked around it was that they would drop the interest rate but increase the fees, and that's what you were talking about just a second ago, right? Like,
right.
You have all these fees, and that's where they worked around capturing their dollars, right? So yeah, that was just as bad.
So yeah, the new thing now is the car title loans. You almost every corner. So it's like they just changed the business signage.
That's all they
from
did. Yeah.
check cashing to title loan.
Yeah.
And and that's basically you taking the title to your car and using that as a what do they call it?
Collateral.
Collateral. Thank you.
Yeah.
And if you miss a payment, you pretty much signing your car over to them.
Absolutely.
You
And they
don't have
can
a car
literally-
anymore.
Absolutely. And I just want everybody to understand what they do. You sign your car over, you're going to get $1,000, and you're happy with that $1,000. But if you miss a payment, they can come repo your car and watch this. Then they sell your car at the market value. So you got $1,000 out of it, but now they're gonna sell your car to a used car dealership at $3,500, $4,000, $5,000. So they're walking away with literally a $3,000 to a $4,000 profit because you simply could not afford the terms of the payment, the repayments.
And it's so easy now to get one of those instant loans online.
Yeah.
Like, all you need is $500, especially around the holidays, around Christmas holidays, whatever. You just be careful of those. And then the buy now, pay later is has become the new online predatory lender.
And the one thing about that, I think that people miss, especially with the credit cards that, like you said, during holidays, and what you're referring to now with zero down and you pay later. Mm-hmm. What you miss is that you have daily calculations of interest rate that hit you when your first payment comes through. Yeah, you got to read the fine print. And so that gets a lot of people too. Or they'll tell you 0%, but then you miss the fact that as soon as your first bill comes in past that term for 0%, then you're going to be hit with a 26, 27, 28%, 30% interest rate. And imagine believing that you're going to pay something off within 30 days and you don't. Mm-hmm. Right? And now you have all of the interest plus the interest collected over those 30 days. It's going to hit you. So you don't have a payment, but the interest rate is going to hit you.
Yeah. Because that's why I say you got to be careful to read the fine print. Some places, when they say no interest for 90 days, what they actually mean is no interest payment for 90 days, but the interest is still accruing. But then, so if you're going to get it and you actually honestly believe you're going to pay it off in 90 days, pay it off in 90 days. Otherwise, like you said, you have now added on 90 days worth of interest.
And I'll tell you what they're doing. They're really using debt-free education to work against us. We always use the 90-day rule that we ought to have 90 days worth of savings, right? 90 days there. Well, if I have 90 days to pay it off with 0% interest, then I might as well save my money for 90 days.
Hello.
You see what I'm saying? So they're using that against us. Yeah. If I have 0% interest, then let me just save my money for 90 days.
What happened let's go back to layaway.
Yep.
There was no interest on layaway.
On layaway. It's layaway, right? So it's the same thing. So lay away your dollars, and after 90 days, go buy what you normally would have put on their credit card in the first place.
Even if it's something you think you really need, 9 times out of 10, you've probably been without it for a period anyway, and up to you decide, wow, 90-day interest, then be without it again for a little bit more for 90 days. And it's easy right now for me to say this, but because I wish I had someone or mechanism like this or tools like this. Oh, I thought that was you, Malcolm. It's the choo-choo train that get me. That would help. That would have helped me. Yeah. But I learned through trial and error, so I definitely want to make sure others know. Yeah. It took me years, because I ended up having to get one in the. Really, you got for 3 minutes.
This is a good topic. This is good.
This is good.
Don't address it.
This is good.
I'm
this
just
is
letting
good.
you know.
It's like she didn't have to say anything.
No. That mean I got. Anywho.
It's just a guideline. It's just a
guide. That's right. It's just a guide. It's just a guideline.
For those who don't know, I have a timer up. Just let them know how much long they got. But LaShawna, please feel free to go a little longer. By the way,
director.
I am here. By the way, I am here.
I didn't say you weren't here. I just said you didn't feel like talking. Okay. Anywho, but I wish that there was more tools like this in place way back when. So now I consider it my responsibility to make sure others know about this thing. But I encourage people to, be responsible yourself. Yeah. Don't just wait until somebody needs to come bail you out of stuff. Educate yourself. It's just
I agree. And I think that's the key to I know we're going to talk about that in a second, but I think that's the key to fighting against predatory lending, right? It's knowing where you are at all times with your financial status and not trying to live outside your means and really, like you said, humble yourself, because the pride, man. Listen, a fall comes before with pride, a fall comes before all of that, right? And so you got to deal with that, and that's a very true biblical principle about walking in pride. That soon after you're going to fall in
What's it called? Pride comes
before a fall, right? And you're going to fall, and then afterwards. So that fall is going to come. Walking in that pride, and that fall, I think we think a lot of spiritual times, but it's even in this. Like once again. Because you want to walk in your pride, keep up with the Joneses, or don't want to admit that you're in a financial distress. All of us have gotten into that at one point in time, unless you're like some people that were born, quote, with a silver spoon. Outside of that, you're going to go through some financial difficulties. Go ahead and cement your relationships to the degree that if you need something. Now, listen, here's the other thing, too. just like your credit score says a lot about who you are and your financial ability to repay your friends.
Hello.
Repay your family. Because it's not if you have that situation again, it's when. And you want to be able to say that you have been faithful for what people have given you, and you're going to return that back to them in a prompt manner that you agreed upon. And if you didn't agree upon it, I mean, if you can't meet that agreement, then open up the avenue of communication and say, hey, listen, I know I said I was going to give you that 20, but if I can't do it, today, can I hit you up tomorrow with, and then do that, right? And I think that keeps you out of the lane of that predatory lending.
Like I said, I can't stress enough how I wish I had this information. And I'm grateful for the fact that information is out there, and it is totally up to us in order to be able to go out there and grab it.
Yeah.
So before we go, I just wanted to point out some laws. I'm only going to give you the title of the laws. You can go. I encourage you to go do your research yourself. So when it comes to housing and predatory lending, there's the Fair Housing Act, the Truth in Lending Act, the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, and the Dodd-Frank Act, which actually created the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which oversees all the different violations and everything else and try to hold people accountable. And when it comes to like the payday lenders and the car loan title places, you also have your usury laws, which we discussed earlier, sets a cap on how much interest can be used, and then the Truth in Lending. I do want to say that for the Truth in Lending Act, that means you got to be truthful.
That's right.
They being the lenders have to be truthful in everything that is going on. That's why there's fine print.
Yes.
It didn't say it had to be big print.
Right.
So they got away with that. They was like, okay, you didn't say it had to be big writing, so we're going to put it in fine print. But then it's up to us to actually read that fine print.
Yeah. Because if you sign that document,
if
you sign that document, you're alleging that you understand absolutely everything within the context of that document.
And you can't assume that one lender has the same language as another lender.
Absolutely.
Because it's not the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, things are getting a little bit better, but we did have a setback a couple years ago when other people were in charge. So in 2016, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, they issued a rule establishing stricter regulations for the underwriting of payday and auto title loan, which means they were holding people's feet to the fire, saying you cannot have 50% interest. You cannot have this. But then in July 2020, under new leadership, who shall not be named, all that was revoked. And other actions were also revoked. Therefore, and sort of weakened, put us back where we were before. Now, thank goodness, this is on the federal level. So thank goodness most of the states kept all their stuff in place. So I encourage you, one, to determine what your state laws are when it regards to usury, payday loans, and everything else. Educate yourself on the types of lenders that are out there. Know that one title company is not the same as another title company. And then don't be afraid, like you said, to ask those near and dear to you.
Yeah, what you're talking about. Yeah, what you're really talking about overall is just it's just simply educate yourself.
Educate yourself.
You really have to take the time to educate yourself, and if you really feel like you have to open yourself up to predatory lending, I would just say think again. And if you don't think there are other options, it's because you probably have not exposed yourself to other options, right? Mm-hmm. There are always options. And I always say this, there's absolutely never a time when you are between a rock and a hard place. You always have an
always
option.
An answer.
The question you have to ask yourself, are you willing to have the courage to explore those options? Yeah. That might expose you, right? Mm-hmm. That might cause you to have to be transparent. Like, hey, let me just go and throw this handkerchief out there because I'm giving in, right? Let me throw the life jacket out there because I know I can't swim. Just go ahead and admit. But I think that those are options, though. Like you said, and there are people out there, family members and friends, that'll help you, because educating yourself is the way to guard yourself against predatory lending.
And it fixes your mindset too, because that's also one of the big things you talked about earlier. Don't be so quick to emulate or imitate what you see others doing, because everybody's circumstances is different. And in this internet age and this influencer age, social media age, everyone wants to do and see things that are out there. You have to have the mindset to say, okay, yeah, that's nice, but is it really something I need? Is it something I need to do? Do I really want to be like everybody else at the cost of my own livelihood?
Or just if you want to, be patient enough to do what is necessary to take one step at a time to get there.
Exactly.
You don't have to go from 0 to 10 immediately. Just go to step 1 and step 2. If somebody's up at step 5, that's cool. You always have to know where you are. And I think that, my daddy used to say, if you want to, the only way you can start from the top is digging a hole, then you're on your way down. And I think that people are always trying to get to the top because I think you're right. In technology, in the industry, the place where we are right now with technology and social media platforms, we see people and we think that what we see is really who they are. And they're highlighting all the best of what we think that they are, right? And we're not understanding maybe there's some things in the background that we just do not see. So it's always prudent to get off that sometimes and really give consideration of where you are and acknowledge and be honest where we are. And then just simply take one step at a time to get to where you believe you want to be. And it's all right to want the nice car, want the nice home, to be able to take a vacation. But you may want to step back and think of other ways that it's going to take to get there rather than these payday loans and these predatory lenders.
Well, as usual, lots of good information, and I appreciate it. Let's hope that our listeners and our watchers are paying attention and learn how to educate
My fingers
themselves
across
too.
always.
And
Trust God.
trust God.
Trust God.
Until we meet again, this is Lashana, and over there is,
Reverend Woods, Michael Woods.
and over in the corner over there is Malcolm.
There he is over in the corner,
And
always in
this
the
is
corner.
the Family Fortune. Bye.
Bye, guys.